I get it, so many graphics cards look like they'll turn your rig into a powerhouse, but when you finally install them you end up wrestling with heat, noise, or a performance ceiling that never quite reaches the hype. It's the kind of disappointment that makes you wonder if you should have just stuck with your old card and saved the cash. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. And today I'm going to walk through why the GIGABYTE N4090AERO OC24GD either lives up to that lofty price tag or ends up being another shelf warmers for most people. First, let's set the scene. You're building or upgrading a high-end gaming PC, maybe a workstation for 4K video editing, or you simply want to future-proof your rig for the next wave of ray-traced titles. The RTX 4090 is the headline act, and GIGABYTE's AERO OC variant tries to blend that raw power with a cooler that fits into tighter cases. The card ships with 3 WINDFORCE fans, a metal backplate, and an anti-sag bracket, which on paper sounds like a solid package for anyone worried about drooping GPUs in smaller builds. Who should actually consider this card? If you're already running an RTX 3080 or a 3090 and you want to jump into 4K ultra-high settings with ray tracing enabled, the jump in raw rasterization and AI-driven DLSS performance is noticeable. Likewise, creators who rely on CUDA cores for rendering or AI-assisted upscaling will see real-world time savings. Rendering a 10-minute 8K sequence in Blender can drop to half the time on a 4090 compared with a 3080. On the other side, if your monitor tops out at 1440p or you mainly play esports titles that don't tax the GPU, the AERO OC is overkill. You'll spend a premium for horsepower you'll never fully tap. Now, the practical strengths. The first thing most owners notice is the cooling behavior. The 3-fan WINDFORCE design pushes air through a dense fin stack, and thanks to a semi-passive mode that slows the fans once the card dips below 70°C, you get a relatively quiet experience during lighter workloads. I tested this by streaming a 60 frames per second 4K session of Cyberpunk 2077 with ray tracing on. The card held steady around 73°C and the fans settled into a low hum. That's a pleasant surprise because many flagship cards crank the fans full blast even at modest loads. The second strength is the memory capacity. 24 GB of GDDR6X on a 384-bit bus means you're practically immune to VRAM bottlenecks in the current generation of games, and it also gives you breathing room for massive texture packs or for running multiple GPU-heavy applications side by side. I ran a simultaneous Lightroom batch edit and a DaVinci Resolve color grade while a game streamed in the background, and the system never hit a memory ceiling. That kind of headroom is where the value really surfaces for professionals. Third, the dual BIOS and RGB Fusion aren't just marketing fluff. The dual BIOS lets you flip between a performance-oriented profile and a quieter, temperature-focused profile without needing third-party software. I toggled to the silent profile during a long video render and saw the boost clock dip a few hundred megahertz, but the temperatures fell by about 5 degrees, and the render time increased by less than 2%. For anyone who wants that quick swap without diving into the BIOS each time, it's a handy feature. Now on to the trade-offs that matter after you plug the card in. The most common gripe with the RTX 4090 family is power draw, and the AERO OC is no exception. The card peaks at around 450W under full load, which means you'll need a quality 850W PSU at a minimum, and you'll have to make sure your case can handle the extra heat output. I noticed that even with the fans working efficiently, the exhaust air from the rear of my case was noticeably warmer than with a 3080, so I had to upgrade my case fans to maintain a balanced airflow. If you're on a tight budget for PSU upgrades or have a small case, that extra cost can erode the perceived savings of buying a cheaper version of the 4090. Another subtle downside is the physical size. The AERO OC measures 3 slot width and a length that pushes past the standard ATX dimensions. In my mid-tower build the card fit, but it forced me to relocate my M.2 SSD heatsink and left little room for additional drives. For anyone using a compact mini ITX case, this card is a nightmare to fit, and you'll end up either having to compromise on other components or look for a smaller GPU, which defeats the purpose of the 4090's performance. Lastly, the price point. Even with occasional discounts, the AERO OC sits well above $2,000. That's a steep entry, and while the performance gains are real, you have to ask whether you'll actually leverage them. If you're a streamer who wants to run multiple 4K streams simultaneously, or you're a developer testing AI models, the investment can be justified. For the average gamer who upgrades from a 3060, the performance jump feels like buying a sports